Sarah Martinez had never imagined that a simple Tuesday afternoon would change her life forever. The 28-year-old accountant from Phoenix, Arizona, had always been the quiet type who preferred spreadsheets to social gatherings and books to bars. Her routine was predictable. Wake up at 6, coffee and toast, drive to the accounting firm where she worked, crunch numbers for 8 hours, drive home, microwave dinner, and fall asleep watching Netflix. It was a life that suited her perfectly, or so she thought. The invitation came from her older brother Jake, a former Marine who had been trying to get Sarah out of her shell for years. He called her on a Saturday morning while she was doing laundry, his voice carrying that familiar mix of excitement and mischief that usually meant trouble for Sarah's carefully ordered world. "Come on, sis, it'll be fun," Jake pleaded over the phone. "Just one afternoon at the range. I promise you'll love it. And if you don't, I'll never ask again." Sarah paused, holding a wrinkled blouse against her chest. She had always been curious about Jake's weekend hobby, but had never found the courage to join him. The thought of handling firearms made her nervous, despite growing up in Arizona where gun culture was as common as cactus plants and scorching summers. "I don't know, Jake. I've never even touched a gun before. What if I embarrass myself?" "That's exactly why you should come," Jake responded with a chuckle. "Everyone starts somewhere. Besides, I'll be right there with you. The Red Rock shooting range has excellent safety protocols, and the staff is super helpful with beginners." After 15 minutes of back and forth, Sarah finally agreed, surprising even herself. Maybe it was time to step outside her comfort zone, she thought. Maybe it was time to understand what drew her brother to spend every Saturday afternoon at the shooting range instead of watching football like most guys his age. The following Tuesday, Sarah found herself standing in the parking lot of Red Rock shooting range, her palms sweating despite the dry Arizona heat. The building looked more welcoming than she had expected, with large windows and a modern facade that somehow made the whole experience feel less intimidating. Jake was already waiting for her by the entrance, wearing his usual confident grin and a Red Rock shooting range cap that had seen better days. "Ready for this?" he asked, giving her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Sarah nodded, though her stomach was doing somersaults. They walked through the front doors into a surprisingly spacious lobby, filled with glass cases displaying various firearms, ammunition, and accessories. The walls were covered with certificates, safety posters, and photographs of competition winners. The smell of gun oil and cleaning solvent hung in the air, unfamiliar but not unpleasant. Behind the counter stood Marcus Thompson, the range's head instructor and part owner. Marcus was a man in his 50s with graying temples and kind eyes that immediately put Sarah at ease. He had spent 20 years as a police firearms instructor before opening the range with his business partner, and he had a gift for making nervous beginners feel confident and safe. "You must be Sarah," Marcus said, extending his hand. "Jake's told me a lot about you. First time shooting. First time even being in a gun store," Sarah admitted, shaking his hand and appreciating his firm but gentle grip. Marcus smiled warmly. "Well, you've come to the right place. We'll start you off with something small and work our way up. Safety first, always." Jake had already signed them in and handled the paperwork while Marcus gathered the necessary equipment. They started with a brief safety orientation in a small classroom adjacent to the main lobby. Marcus explained the 4 fundamental rules of firearm safety with the patience of a seasoned teacher, making sure Sarah understood each concept before moving on to the next. "Treat every firearm as if it's loaded," Marcus began, his voice serious but encouraging. "Never point the muzzle at anything you don't intend to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Be sure of your target and what's beyond it." Sarah found herself hanging on every word, her natural attention to detail serving her well as she absorbed the information. Jake watched with obvious pride as his sister asked thoughtful questions about sight alignment, breathing techniques, and proper stance. It was clear that Sarah's analytical mind was already working to understand the mechanics and science behind accurate shooting. After the classroom portion, they moved to the indoor range. The sound of gunfire from other shooters made Sarah jump initially, but the high-quality sound dampening and ear protection made it manageable. Marcus led them to lane 7, midway down the range, and began setting up targets at 7 yards. "We'll start with a .22 caliber pistol," Marcus explained, producing a small, lightweight handgun from a locked case. Low recoil, easy to control, perfect for learning the fundamentals. The next hour passed in a blur of instruction, practice, and gradual confidence building. Sarah's first few shots went wide, missing the target entirely, but Marcus remained patient and encouraging. He adjusted her stance, helped her find the proper sight picture, and coached her breathing. Jake stood quietly to the side, smart enough to let the professional do his job. Remember, shooting is all about consistency, Marcus said as Sarah lined up for her 10th shot. Same stance, same grip, same sight picture, same trigger press. Make it mechanical. Something clicked. Sarah's shot landed in the 7 ring of the target, and she felt a surge of satisfaction she hadn't expected. The next shot hit the 8 ring. Then, the 9 ring. Within 20 rounds, she was consistently hitting the target's center area, her natural perfectionist tendencies driving her to improve with each shot. Not bad for a first-timer, Marcus commented, genuinely impressed. You've got steady hands and good focus. Jake, your sister's a natural. Jake beamed with pride, but he could see something had awakened in Sarah. The quiet, reserved accountant was gone, replaced by someone completely absorbed in the challenge of precision shooting. Her eyes had taken on an intense focus he'd never seen before, and she was asking increasingly technical questions about ballistics and accuracy. As they wrapped up the session, Marcus made a suggestion that would prove prophetic. Sarah, if you're interested, we have a women's shooting league that meets Thursday evenings. Very supportive group, all skill levels welcome. I think you'd enjoy it. Sarah surprised everyone, including herself, by immediately expressing interest. As they packed up their equipment and headed back to the lobby, she was already planning her return visit. The quiet life of routine suddenly felt less appealing than the precise challenge of shooting sports. So how was it? Jake asked as they walked to their cars. Amazing, Sarah replied, and she meant it. I had no idea something like this could be so meditative. It requires complete focus and control. Think you'll come back? Sarah looked back at the range building, already feeling the pull to return. Definitely. I want to get better at this. As she drove home that evening, Sarah's mind was racing with thoughts about stance, sight alignment, and breathing control. She had discovered something she never knew was missing from her life. A pursuit that combined mental discipline with physical skill, requiring the kind of precision that appealed to her analytical nature. She spent the evening researching shooting techniques online, watching instructional videos, and reading about competitive shooting sports. The world that had opened up to her that afternoon was vast and fascinating, filled with disciplines she had never heard of and challenges that excited her in a way she couldn't fully explain. Thursday evening couldn't come fast enough. Sarah arrived at Red Rock shooting range 30 minutes early, eager to meet the women's league and continue developing her newfound passion. The parking lot was busier than it had been on Tuesday, with cars belonging to the regular evening crowd who treated the range as their second home. Inside, she was introduced to the Thursday Night Ladies League, a diverse group of women ranging from college students to retirees, all united by their love of shooting sports. There was Jennifer, a nurse who used target shooting to decompress after long shifts at the hospital. Maria, a single mother who had started shooting for self-defense but stayed for the camaraderie and competition. Betty, a 70-year-old retired teacher who had discovered shooting in her 60s and now competed nationally. Welcome to the sisterhood, Betty said with a warm smile, immediately taking Sarah under her wing. Marcus told us you showed real promise on Tuesday. Ready to see what you can really do. The league's format was relaxed but structured. They spent the first 30 minutes on skill-building exercises, working on fundamentals, and trying different shooting positions. Sarah found herself naturally gravitating toward the more technical aspects, asking detailed questions about sight adjustment, trigger control, and the physics of ballistics. You think like an engineer, observed Jennifer, watching Sarah meticulously adjust her stance based on the feedback from each shot. That's going to serve you well in this sport. The evening progressed through various drills and challenges, each designed to build different aspects of shooting skill. Sarah excelled at the precision exercises, her steady hands, and methodical approach producing tight groups on the target. When they moved to timed exercises, she struggled initially with the pressure but quickly adapted, her competitive instincts surprising everyone, including herself. As the evening wound down, Marcus approached Sarah with a suggestion that would set the stage for what was to come. "Sarah, I've been watching your progress tonight, and I think you're ready to try something a little more challenging. How would you feel about stepping up to a larger caliber pistol?" Sarah's eyes lit up with interest. "What did you have in mind?" "We'll start with a 9mm next week. Bit more recoil than the .22, but nothing too dramatic. If you handle that well, we can explore some other options." As Sarah drove home that night, she realized that shooting had already become more than just a hobby. It was providing something she hadn't even known she was missing, a sense of challenge and accomplishment that her desk job couldn't offer. The precise mental focus required reminded her of solving complex accounting problems, but with the added element of physical skill and immediate, measurable results. The next week brought the 9mm pistol, and Sarah handled the increased recoil with surprising ease. Her groups remained tight, and her confidence continued to grow. Marcus began introducing more advanced concepts, different shooting positions, varying distances, and the fundamentals of defensive shooting. "You've got real talent," Marcus told her after a particularly impressive session. "Have you given any thought to trying some competition shooting?" The idea intrigued Sarah, though she wasn't sure she was ready for that level of commitment. "What kind of competition?" "There are lots of different disciplines. Bullseye shooting, which focuses on pure accuracy. IDPA, which is more practical shooting. Steel challenge for speed and precision. Each one emphasizes different skills." Sarah filed the information away, not ready to make any commitments, but definitely interested in learning more. Her Tuesday and Thursday range sessions had become the highlights of her week, and she found herself thinking about shooting techniques during her lunch breaks at work. 3 weeks after her first visit to the range, Sarah received a call from Marcus that would change everything. "Sarah, I have an interesting proposition for you. We're hosting a special event this Saturday, kind of a fun challenge day for our regular members. I think you'd enjoy it, and it might give you a taste of what competitive shooting is like." The event was designed to be low-key and welcoming, with various shooting challenges set up throughout the range. Participants could try their hand at different disciplines and see what appealed to them. There would be experienced competitors on hand to offer advice and encouragement, and prizes for various categories, including Best New Shooter. Sarah agreed immediately, excitement overriding any nervousness she might have felt. Saturday morning found her at the range bright and early, wearing comfortable clothes and carrying the small range bag she had purchased to hold her eye and ear protection, notebook for tracking her progress, and the various accessories she had begun accumulating. The range had been transformed for the event, with different stations set up to showcase various shooting disciplines. There was a bullseye station with precision targets at 25 yards, a steel challenge setup with metal plates that rang when hit, and a practical shooting course with cardboard targets positioned at different distances and angles. "Nervous?" asked Betty, who had arrived shortly after Sarah. "A little," Sarah admitted, "but mostly excited. This looks like fun." "It is fun," Betty assured her. "And don't let the competition aspect intimidate you. Everyone here started exactly where you are now. We're all just trying to improve and have a good time doing it." The morning began with a brief orientation where the event organizers explained the format and safety procedures specific to the day's activities. Participants would rotate through stations in small groups, trying each challenge and receiving instruction from experienced shooters. Sarah's group started at the bullseye station, where she immediately felt comfortable with the familiar precision shooting format. The targets were smaller than what she was used to, and the distance was greater, but her methodical approach served her well. She took her time with each shot, focusing on the fundamentals Marcus had taught her, and was pleased to see most of her rounds clustering near the center of the target. "Nice shooting," commented David Chun, a local competition shooter who was volunteering as an instructor for the event. "You've got excellent form for someone who's been shooting for less than a month." The Steel Challenge station was Sarah's next stop, and it presented an entirely different type of challenge. Instead of paper targets, she was shooting at metal plates that fell when hit, creating an immediate and satisfying confirmation of success. The emphasis was on speed and accuracy combined, requiring her to find the balance between being fast enough to post a competitive time and accurate enough to actually hit the targets. Her first run was slow but clean, hitting all 5 plates without any misses. David encouraged her to pick up the pace on her second attempt, and Sarah surprised herself by shaving several seconds off her time while still maintaining accuracy. "You've got the makings of a steel shooter," David observed. "Good hand-eye coordination, and you stay calm under pressure. Those are important qualities for this game." The practical shooting station proved the most challenging for Sarah, requiring her to engage targets from different positions and distances while moving through a simple course. It was unlike anything she had tried before, demanding split-second decision-making and the ability to shoot accurately while her body was in motion. She struggled initially, but the patient instruction from the course designer helped her understand the concepts. By her third run through the course, she was beginning to see the appeal of this more dynamic style of shooting. As the morning progressed into afternoon, Sarah found herself completely absorbed in the experience. Each discipline offered something different, challenging various aspects of her developing skills. She was keeping careful notes in her notebook, tracking her performance at each station and jotting down tips and techniques she wanted to practice. During the lunch break, she found herself in conversation with several experienced competitors who were curious about her rapid progress and obvious enthusiasm. Their encouragement and advice made her feel welcomed into a community she was only beginning to understand. "You should consider joining our club," suggested Patricia, a woman in her 40s who competed in multiple disciplines. "We have practice sessions twice a week, and we travel to matches throughout the Southwest. It's a great way to improve your skills and see some new places." The afternoon brought the main event that Marcus had mentioned when he first called her about the day. A local collector had brought several of his prized firearms for people to try, including some impressive pieces that Sarah had only seen in movies. There were vintage revolvers, precision target pistols, and, at the far end of the table, a massive handgun that immediately caught her attention. It was a Desert Eagle, a .44 Magnum semi-automatic pistol that looked more like a small cannon than a handgun. The gun was intimidating in size and reputation, known for its tremendous power and equally impressive recoil. Sarah had read about Desert Eagles online but had never seen one in person. "That's quite a hand cannon," commented Jake, who had arrived to watch his sister's first competition event. "Think you're ready for something like that?" Sarah stared at the massive pistol, feeling both intimidated and intrigued. After a morning of success at various shooting challenges, her confidence was running high, but she knew this would be something entirely different from the relatively gentle firearms she had been using. Marcus appeared beside them, having noticed Sarah's interest in the Desert Eagle. "Thinking about giving it a try?" he asked with a knowing smile. "It's quite a step up from what you've been shooting, but I think you can handle it." The moment had arrived that would define not just Sarah's afternoon, but potentially her entire future in the shooting sports. Standing there in the indoor range, surrounded by the encouraging voices of her new community and faced with a challenge that seemed almost impossibly daunting, Sarah Martinez was about to make a decision that would shock everyone present, including herself. Sarah's heart pounded as she approached the table where the Desert Eagle lay waiting. The afternoon sun streaming through the range's windows seemed to illuminate the massive pistol like a spotlight, making its polished chrome finish gleam with an almost hypnotic appeal. She had watched 3 other shooters attempt to fire the powerful handgun, each struggling with its tremendous recoil and barely managing to keep their shots on the large paper target set up at 15 yards. The gun's owner, Robert Sullivan, was a distinguished gentleman in his 60s who had been collecting firearms for over 30 years. His Desert Eagle was a pristine example of the Israeli-made pistol, chambered in .44 Magnum, and featuring the distinctive triangular barrel that had made the gun famous in countless action movies. Robert took obvious pride in his collection, and he was particular about who he allowed to handle his prized pieces. "Are you sure about this, miss?" Robert asked, studying Sarah with experienced eyes. "This isn't like the smaller caliber pistols you've been practicing with. The .44 Magnum is a serious round with serious recoil. I've seen grown men struggle to control this gun." Sarah nodded, though she could feel butterflies dancing in her stomach. "I understand it's different. I've been reading about the Desert Eagle online, and I know what to expect in terms of recoil and muzzle blast. I'd like to try it if you'll let me." Marcus stepped forward, his protective instincts as a range instructor kicking in. "Robert, I've been working with Sarah for the past month, and she's shown exceptional progress. Her fundamentals are solid, and she handles recoil well for someone her size. I think she can manage it safely. Jake wasn't as confident. Sarah, maybe you should work your way up to something like that. There's no shame in waiting until you have more experience. But Sarah's mind was made up. Something about the massive pistol called to her, perhaps the same perfectionist drive that made her excel at accounting. If she was going to do this, she wanted to do it right, and she wanted to challenge herself with something that would truly test her developing skills. A small crowd had begun to gather around their lane, word having spread that the quiet accountant who had been impressing people all morning was about to attempt firing the Desert Eagle. The atmosphere became electric with anticipation, conversations dropping to whispers as other shooters positioned themselves to watch. Robert carefully lifted the Desert Eagle from its case, treating it with the reverence due a precision instrument. The gun was enormous in his hands, and Sarah realized it would look even larger when she held it. The frame was constructed from aircraft-grade aluminum, while the barrel and other critical components were made from high-strength steel. Everything about the pistol spoke of power and precision engineering. Before we start, Robert said seriously, let me explain what you're dealing with here. This pistol fires a 240 grain .44 Magnum cartridge at about 1,400 feet per second. That translates to nearly 1,050 foot-pounds of energy leaving the muzzle. For comparison, the 9mm you've been shooting produces about 350 foot-pounds. The recoil is going to be substantial. Sarah listened intently, her analytical mind processing the ballistic data. She understood that she was about to experience something far more powerful than anything she had previously encountered. The physics alone were daunting, but her growing confidence in her fundamental shooting skills made her believe she could handle it. Marcus conducted a thorough safety briefing, emphasizing proper grip technique for managing heavy recoil. The key is a high, firm grip with your strong hand, and maximum contact between the gun and both hands. Don't fight the recoil, let it happen, but maintain control throughout. And whatever you do, don't let go of the gun. Robert loaded a single cartridge into the Desert Eagle's magazine, explaining that they would start with one shot to gauge Sarah's reaction. The metallic click of the round sliding into the chamber seemed unusually loud in the suddenly quiet range bay. He carefully handed the massive pistol to Sarah, watching her face for any signs of fear or uncertainty. The moment Sarah's hands closed around the Desert Eagle's grip, she understood why it had such a legendary reputation. The pistol was incredibly heavy, weighing nearly 4.5 pounds empty, and the weight distribution was unlike anything she had experienced. Her smaller hands barely encompassed the large frame, but she found she could achieve a secure grip using the techniques Marcus had taught her. Take your time, Marcus advised quietly. Get comfortable with the weight, and feel before you even think about firing. There's no rush here. Sarah raised the massive pistol toward the target, immediately noticing how much more effort it required compared to the lighter gun she had been using. The Desert Eagle's sights were large and easy to acquire, but holding the gun steady on target demanded significantly more strength and concentration. The weight seemed to provide its own stability once she found the right position, and Sarah began to understand why some serious target shooters preferred heavier firearms. After a few moments of dry firing practice, she felt as ready as she could be for the real thing. Remember, Robert called out, this gun is going to jump. Don't try to fight it, just ride it out and bring it back down to the target. And watch for the brass. These big cases come out with authority. Sarah took a deep breath, aligned the sights on the center of the target, and began applying pressure to the trigger. The Desert Eagle's trigger pull was longer and heavier than what she was accustomed to, requiring deliberate effort to complete the firing sequence. The explosion when the gun fired was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The .44 Magnum cartridge produced a tremendous muzzle blast, and a sharp crack that seemed to reverberate through her entire body despite her ear protection. The recoil lifted her hands skyward, but her firm grip and proper stance kept the gun under control. The spent brass case ejected with such velocity that it clattered off the ceiling tiles before bouncing to the floor. For a moment, Sarah wasn't even sure if she had hit the target. The sensory overload of firing such a powerful weapon had temporarily overwhelmed her ability to track the bullet's impact. But as the smoke cleared and her vision focused on the target downrange, she could see a neat hole punched through the paper, slightly left of center, but well within the scoring rings. The watching crowd erupted in spontaneous applause. Jake hooped with pride and amazement, while Marcus nodded approvingly. Robert looked genuinely surprised at the result, having expected a completely missed target from a novice shooter attempting to handle his powerful pistol. "Outstanding," Robert exclaimed, lowering his binoculars. "That's better shooting than most people manage on their first attempt with this gun." "How did it feel?" Sarah was still processing the experience, her hands tingling from the recoil and her ears ringing slightly despite the hearing protection. "Intense," she finally managed. "Much more powerful than I expected, but not uncontrollable. The weight actually helped with stability once I got used to it." Marcus was studying the target through his spotting scope, clearly impressed with the result. "That's a very respectable shot for your first time with a .44 Magnum. Most people are lucky to hit the paper, let alone score a hit that close to center. Want to try another one?" Sarah surprised everyone, including herself, by immediately nodding yes. The power and precision of the Desert Eagle had awakened something competitive in her that she hadn't known existed. Rather than being intimidated by the massive pistol, she found herself analyzing what had caused the shot to impact slightly left and how she might correct it on the next attempt. Robert loaded another cartridge, clearly enjoying Sarah's enthusiasm and obvious talent. "This time," he suggested, "try to really focus on your sight alignment. I think your shot placement was affected by anticipating the recoil. Just let it surprise you when it goes off." The second shot felt different from the first. With the knowledge of what to expect, Sarah was able to maintain better focus throughout the firing sequence. She concentrated on keeping perfect sight alignment while gradually increasing pressure on the trigger, trying not to think about the coming recoil. When the Desert Eagle fired the second time, Sarah was better prepared for the experience. The massive gun bucked in her hands, but she rode the recoil more smoothly and was able to call her shot as good even before checking the target. Her prediction proved accurate. The bullet had struck just right of the center ring, creating a group with her first shot that would have been respectable for an experienced shooter. The crowd's reaction was even more enthusiastic than before. David Chin shook his head in amazement, commenting to anyone who would listen that he had never seen anything like Sarah's natural ability with a handgun. Betty beamed with maternal pride, as if Sarah were her own daughter achieving something special. "Beginner's luck," Sarah said modestly, though she could feel a growing confidence that had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with the solid fundamentals she had been building over the past month. "That's not luck," Robert corrected firmly. "That's skill. I've watched hundreds of shooters try this gun over the years, and very few show the kind of natural ability you've just demonstrated. Have you considered taking up competitive shooting seriously?" The question hung in the air like the lingering smell of gunpowder. Sarah had been thinking about competition for weeks, but hearing it suggested by someone of Robert's experience and reputation gave the idea new weight. The feeling of accomplishment from successfully handling the Desert Eagle was unlike anything she had experienced in her carefully ordered life. "I've been thinking about it," Sarah admitted, "but I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of commitment yet. I've only been shooting for a month." "Some of the best competitors I know started exactly where you are now," David interjected. "Natural ability like yours is rare, and it would be a shame not to develop it. There's a monthly pistol match at Phoenix Rod and Gun Club next weekend. Nothing too serious, just local shooters getting together to have fun and improve their skills." Marcus nodded in agreement. "It would be a good way to see what competition shooting is like without jumping into anything too intense. And after what I've seen today, I think you do very well." Sarah felt torn between her natural caution and the growing excitement about this new world she had discovered. The logical part of her mind said it was too soon, that she needed more experience before trying to compete against people who had been shooting for years. But another part of her, a part that had been dormant for too long, was hungry for the challenge. "What would it involve?" she asked, curiosity overriding caution. "It's a bullseye match," David explained. "Slow-fire precision shooting at 25 yards, very similar to what you've been practicing. 3 stages with different guns, scored for accuracy. Perfect format for someone with your skills." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Tom Bradley, a veteran competitor who had been watching Sarah's performance with the Desert Eagle from across the range. Tom was something of a legend in Arizona shooting circles, having competed at the national level for over 2 decades and mentored dozens of up-and-coming shooters. "Excuse me for butting in," Tom said with a friendly smile, "but I couldn't help but notice you're shooting. Mind if I ask how long you've been at this?" "About a month," Sarah replied, still somewhat overwhelmed by all the attention her shooting was receiving. Tom's eyebrows rose in surprise. "A month? And you're shooting groups like that with a .44 Magnum?" He shook his head in amazement. "I've been doing this for 25 years, and I can count on one hand the number of new shooters I've seen with that kind of natural ability." The conversation turned to technical aspects of shooting that Sarah was only beginning to understand. Tom explained how proper trigger control was the foundation of all accurate shooting, how sight alignment and sight picture worked together to produce consistent results, and how mental discipline was just as important as physical technique. "The beautiful thing about competitive shooting," Tom continued, "is that it's really a game of precision and consistency. It rewards the kind of analytical thinking and attention to detail that makes someone good at accounting. In many ways, shooting is applied mathematics." That observation resonated strongly with Sarah. She had always excelled at tasks that required methodical analysis and precise execution. The idea that shooting was essentially a physical application of mathematical principles made perfect sense to her systematic mind. As the afternoon event wound down, Sarah found herself surrounded by new friends and mentors, all eager to help her develop her obvious talent. Business cards were exchanged, invitations to practice sessions were extended, and plans were tentatively made for her first competition experience. "I have one more suggestion," Robert said as he carefully packed his Desert Eagle back into its case. "If you're serious about pursuing this sport, you should consider getting your own equipment. Borrowing range guns is fine for learning, but having your own gear will help you develop consistency faster." Marcus nodded in agreement. "We can help you select something appropriate for your skill level and interests. No need to start with anything exotic. A good quality 9mm or .22 would serve you well for practice and local competition." As Sarah drove home that evening, her mind was reeling from the day's experiences. In the span of a single afternoon, she had gone from being a recreational shooter to someone being recruited for competitive shooting by some of the most respected names in the local shooting community. The transition felt surreal, as if she had stepped through a doorway into a completely different version of her life. Her apartment felt smaller somehow when she got home, as if the day's adventures had expanded her perspective beyond the confines of her previous routine. She found herself researching competitive shooting organizations online, reading about different disciplines and skill divisions, and browsing firearms retailers to get an idea of what her own equipment might cost. The Desert Eagle experience had been transformative in ways she was still trying to understand. Successfully handling such a powerful weapon had given her confidence that extended beyond shooting. For the first time in years, she felt like she was truly challenging herself, pushing boundaries she hadn't even known existed. Jake called her that evening, still excited about what he had witnessed at the range. "Sarah, I've never seen anything like that. The way you handled that cannon like it was nothing. People are going to be talking about that for months." "It wasn't nothing," Sarah corrected with a laugh. "That gun packs quite a punch. But it was manageable once I understood what to expect." "So what's next? Are you going to try that competition David was talking about?" Sarah paused, considering the question that had been on her mind all evening. "I think I am," she said finally. "I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I don't do well, and learn from the experience." "That's not going to happen," Jake said confidently. "After watching you today, I think you're going to surprise a lot of people." After hanging up, Sarah stood on her apartment balcony looking out over the Phoenix skyline. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and she found herself thinking about the path that had brought her to this moment. A month ago, she had been perfectly content with her predictable routine and safe choices. Now she was contemplating entering a world of competition and challenge that would have terrified her just weeks before. The transformation hadn't happened overnight, but rather through a series of small steps that had gradually built her confidence and skills. From her first nervous shots with a .22 caliber pistol to successfully handling one of the most powerful handguns ever made, each experience had prepared her for the next challenge. As she prepared for bed, Sarah made a mental list of everything she needed to do in the coming week. Research the competition format, practice her fundamentals, possibly shop for her own equipment, and, most importantly, continue building the skills that had brought her to this unexpected crossroads in her life. The quiet accountant who had walked into Red Rock shooting range just a month earlier was gone, replaced by someone eager to test herself against the best shooters in Arizona. Sarah Martinez was about to discover just how far natural talent, combined with determination and proper instruction, could take her in the precision sport of competitive shooting. The week following Sarah's remarkable performance with the Desert Eagle passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Word had spread throughout the Arizona shooting community about the newcomer who had impressed everyone at Red Rock's special event, and Sarah found herself receiving calls and emails from competitors eager to meet her and offer encouragement for her upcoming competition debut. Marcus had spent considerable time helping Sarah select her first personal firearm, ultimately recommending a Smith & Wesson M&P 9mm pistol that would serve her well for both practice and competition. The gun was reliable, accurate, and well-suited to Sarah's hand size and shooting style. Along with the pistol came a collection of accessories, extra magazines, a quality holster, shooting glasses with different lens colors for various lighting conditions, and a range bag to carry everything. The equipment is just tools, Marcus explained as they went through everything at the range. Your skills and mental preparation are what will make the difference. But having gear that fits you properly and functions reliably will help you perform consistently. Sarah's practice sessions that week took on a new intensity as she prepared for her first competition. She worked methodically through the fundamentals, focusing especially on trigger control and sight alignment. The M&P felt comfortable in her hands, lighter than the Desert Eagle, but substantial enough to provide stability. Her groups at 25 yards were consistently tight, often all 10 shots clustered within the scoring rings. "You're ready," Tom Bradley told her after watching a practice session Thursday evening. "I've seen national-level competitors who don't shoot groups as tight as yours. Just remember, competition is mostly mental. If you can handle the pressure and stick to your fundamentals, you'll do fine." The Phoenix Rod and Gun Club match was scheduled for Saturday morning, with registration beginning at 8 a.m. and the first relay starting at 9. Sarah arrived early, wanting to familiarize herself with the facility and get acclimated to the competition environment. The parking lot was already busy with competitors unloading equipment and greeting each other with the easy camaraderie of people who shared a common passion. The clubhouse buzzed with activity as shooters registered, paid their fees, and collected their competitor numbers. Sarah was assigned number 47 and placed in the novice division, which was appropriate for someone competing for the first time. She was relieved to see several other women among the 48 competitors, including Betty from the Thursday Night League who had made the drive specifically to watch Sarah's debut. "Nervous?" asked Jennifer Martinez, a masterclass competitor who shared Sarah's last name, but was no relation. Jennifer had been shooting competitively for 15 years and was known for her steady performance under pressure. "More excited than nervous," Sarah replied honestly. "I've been looking forward to this all week." The match format was straightforward. 3 stages of slow-fire precision shooting, with each stage consisting of 10 shots for record. The first stage would be fired with .22 caliber pistols at 25 yards, the second with centerfire pistols at the same distance, and the third would be a challenge stage with centerfire pistols at 50 yards. Competitors had 20 minutes to complete each stage, which was generous time for careful, precise shooting. Sarah's relay was called to the line for the first stage. She found herself on .15, between Mike Chun, a veteran competitor who had been shooting for over 30 years, and Lisa Rodriguez, another relatively new shooter who was competing in only her third match. The atmosphere was serious, but supportive, with experienced shooters offering quiet words of encouragement to the newcomers. "First time?" Mike asked as they prepared their equipment on the shooting bench. "Yes, and I'm not sure what to expect," Sarah admitted. "Just shoot like you do in practice," Mike advised. "The targets don't know it's a competition. Same fundamentals, same process, same result." The range commands began with the traditional format used in precision pistol competition. Load and make ready was followed by "Is the line ready?" When all competitors indicated their readiness, The range officer called "Commence firing." Sarah's first competition shot felt exactly like practice. She raised her .22 caliber target pistol, aligned the sights carefully on the center of the bullseye, and squeezed the trigger with the same controlled pressure she had been practicing all week. The shot broke cleanly, and through her spotting scope, she could see the bullet hole punched neatly in the 9 ring. "Good start," Lisa whispered from the next position. "Nice shot." The rhythm of competition shooting was meditative in a way Sarah hadn't expected. Each shot was an individual challenge requiring complete focus, but the generous time limit allowed for careful deliberation between each attempt. She found herself settling into a comfortable pattern. Analyze the previous shot, make any necessary sight adjustments, breathe deeply, align the sights, and execute a smooth trigger pull. By the end of the first stage, Sarah had fired a score of 92 out of a possible 100, with 9 of her 10 shots in the 8, 9, or 10 ring. It was a respectable score for any competitor and outstanding for someone shooting their first match. The experienced shooters around her offered congratulations and seemed genuinely impressed by her composure under competition pressure. "How did that feel?" asked Tom Bradley, who was serving as Sarah's unofficial coach for the day. "Natural," Sarah replied, surprising herself with how calm she felt. It was just like practice, except more focused somehow. The second stage with centerfire pistols proved even better for Sarah. Using her new MNP 9mm, she felt completely comfortable and confident. The slightly larger caliber required more attention to recoil management, but her recent experience with the Desert Eagle had taught her how to handle powerful handguns effectively. Her first shot of the second stage landed dead center in the 10 ring, drawing appreciative nods from nearby competitors. The second shot joined it in the same scoring ring, followed by a third. By the halfway point of the stage, Sarah was shooting the kind of group that veteran competitors would be proud to claim. "She's in the zone," Mike commented quietly to Jennifer Martinez, who had finished her stage and was watching Sarah's performance. "Look at that concentration. She's not even aware of anything except the target." Indeed, Sarah had entered the mental state that competitive shooters call the zone, a condition of complete focus where outside distractions fade away and only the immediate task exists. Her breathing was controlled, her movements were deliberate, and each shot felt perfect as it broke. When the stage concluded, Sarah had fired a 97 out of 100, with 8 shots in the 10 ring and 2 in the 9. The score was competitive with masterclass shooters, let alone someone in the novice division. A small crowd had gathered behind her position to watch the final shots, drawn by word that the new shooter was putting on a clinic. "Unbelievable," breathed David Chun, shaking his head in amazement. "I've never seen shooting like that from someone in their first competition." The 50-yard challenge stage was designed to test shooters' ability to maintain precision at extended distance, where small errors in technique become magnified. Many competitors struggled with the longer range, their groups opening up significantly as the increased distance revealed flaws in their fundamentals. Sarah approached the final stage with the same methodical preparation she had used throughout the day. The target looked smaller at 50 yards, but her spotting scope revealed that it was the same 10-ring scoring area, just appearing smaller due to distance. She made mental adjustments for the increased range, slightly modifying her sight picture to account for the ballistic arc of her bullets. Her first shot at 50 yards took longer to call than the shorter range stages, but when she checked through her scope, the bullet had found the 9 ring. Not perfect, but well within the scoring area and a promising start to the most challenging stage of the match. "Take your time," Tom advised quietly. "The distance makes everything harder, but your fundamentals are solid. Trust your training." Sarah's second shot landed in the 10 ring, followed by another 10. The pattern continued through the stage, with 9 of her 10 shots clustering tightly in the center of the target. When the final shot broke, she knew instinctively that it was good, and the spotting scope confirmed another 10-ring hit. The score for the final stage was 96 out of 100, giving Sarah an aggregate total of 285 out of 300 possible points. It was a score that would have placed her in the top 10 of the Master Division, despite being her first competition and shooting in the novice class. The range erupted in spontaneous applause as the scores were announced. Sarah's performance had not only won the novice division by a significant margin, but had also placed her third overall among all 48 competitors. The only shooters who had beaten her were two masterclass competitors with decades of experience. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the match director over the public address system. "In 30 years of running competitions, I have never seen a first-time competitor shoot like Sarah Martinez did today. This performance is truly exceptional." The awards ceremony felt surreal to Sarah. Standing on the podium with her novice division trophy and third-place overall medal, she looked out at the crowd of experienced competitors who were applauding her achievement. The quiet accountant who had walked into a shooting range just 5 weeks earlier could never have imagined finding herself in this position. "How does it feel to be an overnight sensation?" asked a reporter from American Rifleman magazine, who had been covering the match and heard about Sarah's remarkable performance. "Overwhelming, but exciting," Sarah replied honestly. "I never expected anything like this when I started shooting. I just wanted to try something new." "What's next for you? Will you be competing again?" The question that had been on everyone's mind all day suddenly focused on Sarah. The shooting community was clearly eager to see where her talent would take her, but Sarah herself was still processing what had happened. "Definitely," she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "I want to keep improving and see how far I can take this." The conversation after the awards ceremony was a whirlwind of congratulations, advice, and invitations. Veteran competitors shared stories of their own early experiences and offered to help Sarah develop her skills further. Match directors from other clubs extended invitations to upcoming competitions, and equipment manufacturers mentioned potential sponsorship opportunities. "You need to think seriously about the state championships," urged Patricia Williams, who had driven down from Flagstaff specifically to compete. "They're in 6 weeks, and with shooting like today's, you could make a real statement at the state level." Tom Bradley was more cautious in his advice. "Don't get too far ahead of yourself," he counseled. "Today was fantastic, but competitive shooting is a long-term journey. Focus on continuing to improve your fundamentals and gaining more match experience." As the crowd began to disperse and equipment was packed away, Sarah found herself standing alone in the desert sun, holding her trophies and contemplating the path that had brought her to this moment. The transformation from nervous beginner to accomplished competitor had happened so quickly that she was still adjusting to her new identity. Jake arrived just as the awards ceremony concluded, having promised to be there for his sister's first competition. His face beamed with pride as he looked at the trophies in Sarah's hands. "So, how was it?" he asked, though her expression and the hardware she carried told most of the story. "Incredible," Sarah replied. "I never imagined competitive shooting could be so challenging and rewarding at the same time. It's like solving complex puzzles, except the solution is measured in fractions of an inch on a target 50 yards away. And you're good at it," Jake observed with obvious pride. "I'm learning that I might be," Sarah said thoughtfully. "But today was just the beginning. I can see how much there is to learn and improve." On the drive home, Sarah's mind raced with plans and possibilities. The state championship Patricia had mentioned was an intriguing goal, but Tom was right about not getting ahead of herself. There were skills to develop, techniques to refine, and mental aspects of competition to master. Her phone buzzed with text messages from members of the Thursday Night League, all offering congratulations and expressing their pride in her achievement. Betty's message particularly touched her. "Knew you were special from day one. Can't wait to see what you accomplish next." That evening, Sarah spread her trophies on her kitchen table and studied them while eating dinner. The physical proof of her achievement was still hard to believe, but the satisfaction she felt went beyond the hardware. She had discovered something she was not only good at but passionate about, something that challenged her in ways she had never experienced. The next morning brought unexpected attention when photos from the match appeared on several shooting sports websites and social media pages. The story of the accountant who had dominated her first competition was spreading through the shooting community, and Sarah's phone rang constantly with calls from reporters, potential sponsors, and fellow competitors. "I think you've created quite a stir," Marcus told her when she stopped by the range Monday evening for her regular practice session. "I've had a dozen calls today from people asking about you and wanting to know when they might see you compete again." The attention was flattering, but also pressure-inducing. Sarah realized that expectations had been created by her performance, and future competitions would be measured against the standard she had set. Instead of being intimidating, though, the challenge energized her. "Good thing I like pressure," Sarah said with a smile as she unpacked her equipment for practice. "Because it looks like there's going to be plenty of it." As she settled into her shooting stance and aligned the sights on a fresh target, Sarah Martinez understood that her life had changed irrevocably. The quiet, predictable existence she had known was gone, replaced by a future filled with competition, challenge, and unlimited potential. The Desert Eagle experience had opened a door to a world she never knew existed, and she was ready to walk through it with confidence and determination. 6 months had passed since Sarah's spectacular debut at Phoenix Rod and Gun Club, and her name had become synonymous with exceptional shooting throughout the Southwest. What had begun as a simple attempt to try something new had evolved into a complete transformation of her life, career aspirations, and personal identity. The quiet accountant who had nervously picked up her first firearm was now being mentioned in the same conversations as national-level competitors. The Arizona State Championships had come and gone, with Sarah claiming both the women's championship and finishing second overall among all competitors. Her performance had attracted national attention, earning her invitations to prestigious matches across the country and offers of sponsorship from major shooting sports companies. The local newspaper had run a feature story about her unlikely rise, complete with photos of her intense concentration during competition. "I still can't believe how much my life has changed," Sarah reflected as she sat in the Red Rock shooting range office, discussing her upcoming travel schedule with Marcus. The wall behind his desk now featured a large photograph of Sarah receiving her state championship trophy, surrounded by her growing collection of achievement certificates. "Believe it," Marcus replied with paternal pride. "You've earned every bit of success you've achieved. The dedication you've shown to improving your skills has been remarkable to watch." Indeed, Sarah's commitment to excellence had become legendary among her fellow competitors. She maintained a rigorous training schedule, practicing 4 days a week and traveling to matches nearly every weekend. Her apartment had been converted into a virtual shooting sports laboratory, with reloading equipment, chronographs for measuring bullet velocity, and detailed logbooks tracking every aspect of her performance. The financial aspect of her new career had required significant adjustments. Her accounting position had been reduced to part-time to accommodate her competition schedule, and while sponsorships were beginning to provide some support, the expenses of traveling to matches and purchasing high-end equipment were substantial. Sarah had been forced to relocate to a smaller apartment and adjust her lifestyle significantly. "It's worth every sacrifice," Sarah told her concerned parents during one of their weekly phone calls. "I found something I'm truly passionate about, something that challenges me in ways I never expected." Her parents had struggled to understand their daughter's dramatic career change, worried about the financial instability and unconventional nature of competitive shooting. However, they couldn't argue with the confidence and happiness they saw in Sarah during their visits to watch her compete. The turning point in Sarah's journey came during the National Pistol Championships in Perry, Ohio, the most prestigious event in precision pistol shooting. The best shooters from across America gathered annually at Camp Perry to determine national champions in various categories, and Sarah's invitation to compete represented the culmination of her rapid rise through the shooting sports hierarchy. "This is different from anything you've experienced before," Tom Bradley warned as they prepared for the trip to Perry. Tom had become Sarah's primary coach and mentor, guiding her development with the patience and expertise that had made him successful at the national level. "The pressure here is unlike state or regional matches. Everyone's shooting at their absolute peak." Sarah nodded, understanding the significance of the opportunity ahead of her. The national championships attracted not only the best American shooters, but also international competitors, creating a field of talent that was intimidating even for experienced competitors. Her first-year amateur status meant she would be competing against women who had been shooting competitively for decades. The drive to Perry took 2 days, giving Sarah time to mentally prepare for the biggest challenge of her shooting career. She reviewed her competition notes, analyzed videos of her technique, and practiced visualization exercises that sports psychologists had recommended. The mental aspect of shooting had become as important to her success as the physical mechanics. Camp Perry itself was overwhelming for a first-time visitor. The historic facility had been hosting shooting competitions for over a century, and the atmosphere was thick with tradition and respect for marksmanship excellence. The range facilities were pristine, the organization was military precise, and the caliber of competitors was immediately obvious from watching practice sessions. Stay focused on your own performance, Tom advised as they walked through the competitor registration area. Don't get distracted by reputations or past achievements. On the firing line, everyone starts with a clean target. Sarah's preliminary scores were solid but not spectacular, placing her in the middle of the pack among the 93 women competitors. The format of the national championships was grueling. 4 days of competition with multiple stages, testing every aspect of precision pistol shooting. The mental and physical demands were unlike anything Sarah had previously experienced. "You're shooting fine," Tom reassured her after the second day when her scores had been consistent but not outstanding. "Sometimes nationals are about survival as much as winning. Stay patient and trust your preparation." The breakthrough came during the third day's .45 caliber stage, traditionally considered the most challenging portion of the championships due to the heavy recoil and demanding accuracy requirements. Sarah had struggled with .45 caliber pistols in practice, finding the increased recoil more difficult to manage than the 9mm gun she preferred. Standing on .37, Sarah loaded her borrowed .45 caliber target pistol and tried to settle her nerves for what she knew would be the most important shooting of her life. The woman to her left was Linda Harrison, a 5-time national champion whose reputation was legendary in competitive shooting circles. On her right stood Maria Santos, the defending women's national champion. "First time at Perry?" Linda asked quietly as they prepared for the stage. "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied, grateful for any distraction from her nervousness. "Just remember, the 10 ring is the same size it's always been. Doesn't matter where you are or who's watching. Shoot your own match." When the range commands began, Sarah forced herself to focus only on the immediate task. The .45 caliber pistol felt heavy in her hands, but she had learned to use the weight to her advantage for stability. Her first shot felt perfect as it broke, and her prediction proved accurate when she spotted a clean hit in the 10 ring. The second shot followed into the same area, then a third. Sarah found herself entering the zone state that had become familiar during her best performances, where external pressure disappeared and only the precision challenge remained. Shot after shot found the center of the target, her groups tightening with each round fired. "My God," whispered Maria Santos as she watched Sarah's target through her spotting scope. "She's shooting a possible." A possible score meant hitting the 10 ring with every shot, an achievement that was rare even among the best competitors at the national level. As word spread along the firing line, other competitors began watching Sarah's performance with growing amazement. When the final shot broke, Sarah knew it was good before checking her scope. The group of 10 shots clustered tightly in the center of the target represented not only her personal best performance, but also one of the finest targets shot at that year's national championships. The score was announced as 100-9x, meaning all 10 shots had hit the 10 ring, with 9 of them in the inner X ring used for tie-breaking purposes. It was a score that would have been impressive from any competitor, but from a first-year shooter at her first national championships, it was extraordinary. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice carried across the range, "we have a possible on .37. Sarah Martinez, competing in her first national championships, has just shot a perfect score in the .45 caliber stage." The standing ovation from competitors, spectators, and range officials was spontaneous and prolonged. Even Linda Harrison, known for her quiet intensity during competition, applauded with obvious admiration for the remarkable performance she had witnessed. The perfect score vaulted Sarah from the middle of the pack into contention for the overall championship. With 1 day of competition remaining, she found herself in 3rd place overall and leading the first-year competitor category by a significant margin. "How does it feel to be in contention for a national championship?" asked a reporter from Shooting Sports USA during the evening interview session. "Surreal," Sarah answered honestly. 6 months ago, I had never fired a gun. Now I'm competing against the best shooters in America and somehow keeping up with them. I'm just trying to stay focused on tomorrow's shooting and not think too much about the implications. The final day of competition dawned clear and calm, with perfect conditions for precision shooting. Sarah's equipment preparation had become ritual by now, cleaning her pistol, checking ammunition, organizing her shooting kit with the methodical attention to detail that characterized her approach to everything. No pressure, Tom joked as they walked to the range for the final stage. Just the women's national championship on the line. Sarah laughed, appreciating his attempt to lighten the mood while understanding the significance of what lay ahead. The final stage would determine not only her placement at nationals, but also her qualification for the international team selection process. The women's championship field had been reduced to the top 20 competitors for the final elimination stage. The format was unforgiving. One shot from each competitor, lowest score eliminated, until only the champion remained. It was a format that rewarded not only accuracy, but also mental toughness under extreme pressure. Sarah's first shot in the elimination round landed dead center in the 10 ring, earning her advancement to the next round while 3 competitors were eliminated. The process continued through multiple rounds, with the field gradually narrowing as pressure mounted on the remaining shooters. Final 3 competitors, announced the match director as Sarah found herself standing with Linda Harrison and Jennifer Webb, another veteran champion. Ladies, this is what national championships are about. Best of luck to all of you. The pressure was unlike anything Sarah had experienced, but her months of competition had taught her how to manage stress and maintain focus when it mattered most. She approached her final shot with the same methodical preparation that had brought her success throughout her rapid rise in competitive shooting. The sight picture looked perfect as Sarah pressed the trigger with smooth, deliberate pressure. The shot broke cleanly, and she knew instinctively that it was good. When the spotting scope confirmed a 10-ring hit with an X for the tiebreaker, Sarah realized she had achieved something that would have been impossible to imagine just months earlier. Your 2024 Women's National Pistol Champion, the announcer proclaimed as the scores were verified. Representing Arizona, Sarah Martinez. The roar of approval from the crowd was deafening, but Sarah heard none of it. Standing on the firing line with her arms raised in victory, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From that first nervous shot at Red Rock shooting range to standing atop the podium at the national championships, every challenge had prepared her for this ultimate test. During the awards ceremony, as the national championship medal was placed around her neck and the crowd rose in standing ovation, Sarah spotted familiar faces in the audience. Marcus had made the trip from Arizona, along with Betty and several members of the Thursday Night League. Their presence represented the community that had nurtured her talent and supported her dreams. "How does it feel to be national champion?" asked the same reporter who had interviewed her after her spectacular debut. "Like the beginning of something even bigger," Sarah replied, her eyes already looking toward the future challenges that awaited. "This medal represents not just what I've accomplished, but what I hope to achieve going forward." The victory had immediate implications beyond personal satisfaction. Sarah's national championship qualified her for the United States shooting team, opening opportunities for international competition and Olympic development programs. Sponsorship offers increased dramatically, and she received invitations to compete in prestigious international matches around the world. More importantly, Sarah had discovered that her transformation from accountant to champion represented something deeper than career change. She had found her true calling, a pursuit that combined her analytical nature with physical skill and mental discipline. The quiet, predictable life she had once led seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a future filled with unlimited potential. Returning to Phoenix as national champion, Sarah was greeted with local media attention and recognition from the mayor's office. The shooting range where her journey had begun organized a celebration event, complete with a ceremony retiring the Desert Eagle that had started everything. Robert Sullivan, the collector who had first allowed her to fire the massive pistol, presented her with a custom plaque commemorating that pivotal moment. None of this would have happened without that first challenge, Sarah reflected during her acceptance speech at the celebration. Sometimes the biggest changes in our lives begin with the willingness to try something completely outside our comfort zone. As she looked out at the crowd of friends, family, and fellow shooters who had supported her journey, Sarah understood that her story was about more than shooting sports. It was about discovering hidden talents, embracing challenges, and having the courage to pursue excellence regardless of the obstacles. The desert eagle that had seemed so intimidating just months earlier now appeared almost quaint compared to the challenges she had overcome. Standing in the same range where she had fired her first perfect shots, Sarah Martinez realized that her greatest achievements were still ahead of her, waiting to be claimed through the same combination of determination, skill, and courage that had transformed her from nervous beginner to national champion. Her journey from accountant to shooting champion had become an inspiration to others seeking to break free from limiting beliefs about their own potential. Sarah Martinez had proven that extraordinary achievement was possible for anyone willing to embrace challenge, commit to excellence, and never give up on their dreams, no matter how impossible they might initially seem.